Good afternoon. This is Tom Furnival, Director of Training Services with Model Institute. I'm here today with my colleague and friend, Dr. John L. Ross, author of the Reliability Excellence Workbook From Ideas to Action and lead facilitator on our new workshop, the Reliability Strategy Workshop From Ideas to Action. We'll take a few minutes today to let you know about this new workshop that is live in 2019 based on the book that John had published back in 2018. So great new book, fantastic new workshop. I wanted to make sure that we outlined what we cover in the workshop and the value that you'll receive from attending the workshop. We've got several dates on the 2019 schedule, so please go to the Marshall Institute website, marshallinstitute.com/training, to the latest dates for the workshop and our other seminars. So we'll get things rocking and rolling. John, I'd love to start off by getting a bit of history into the book itself, why you wrote it, you know, a little bit about your passion and expertise around reliability and the world of maintenance and the problems you're looking to solve with both the book and also with the workshop.
First, thanks for this opportunity. I enjoy talking about reliability and maintenance, as you know. And this in particular, I'd like to answer your question just two ways. One, tell the genesis of the book itself, and then all mine just taking a minute, I'd like to talk about why this is a workshop versus just a regular course where students learn to come and just listen and maybe ask some questions, but why we went with a workshop format. I think the first germ of the book kind of got into my brain back when I was a plant engineer. I had the vice president of our company come and visit, and we were talking about maintenance and reliability. And he asked, we need to move to the next level. How much money do you need? What kinds of things would you do? And I started to extrapolate. Here's what I would do. I don't know how much it would cost, but I could find out. And he on the way out. Not at the time, but he made a comment. It wasn't a snide comment. It was almost an aside, into the fact that I should have already had that ready. I should have known what I needed. I should have known how much money I needed. So I didn't have that prepared. And come to find out, as I'm working with other companies, consulting with Marshall Institute and assessments and whatnot, I tend to find out that nobody has a real strategy, and we need developing a strategy. And it's a workbook and it's a workshop is because it really is hands-on. We need to have a product that is customized to you individually, to your circumstances, even if you're a company that has several plants, to your plant and specifically customized to your people, to your situation, to your in context, as ISO 55000 asset management would say. So we need something individual to you. So it gets the learner in the book. We discuss the processes, we give some examples, and then you actually document how it would work at your place as a real strategy that's customizable and personable to you and your location. So I thought it was very important to have a workshop and a workbook.
Fantastic.
Tom, if you mind, I'd like to launch right in and kind of show you the sorts of things that an attendee might be participating in the workshop.
Very much.
Start with just an agenda. We're going to, at the beginning, we're going to talk about some terminology and get that straight, and then change. I think people are resistant to change as much as I think that they're not willing to go along with something they don't really understand. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. Book and the workshop itself follow the SMRP body of knowledge. So I've got some titles here, but these are synonymous with the 5 pillars of the SMRP. So we'll talk about those as we get into them, but you can see right there. But at the end, and this is interesting, the section 7 down here, as you're going along in this workshop, you're participating in exercises, you're creating content that is unique to your situation, and you're actually populating a notebook, but you're also populating a PowerPoint slide, a template that you're provided with. And at the end of the workshop, you're actually going to have at least a 40-slide PowerPoint presentation. That's your words, your text, your implementation plan to tack to your leaders and say, this is what I want to do. Just like my boss said, hey, if you had some more money, what would you do? You actually have a strategy now. I need this, and here's what you're going to get. That's pretty much how the course stacks up. I like this next slide for the specific reason that in most pyramid type structure that you see, it's all the stuff on the bottom that needs to be in place before you get that capstone at the very top. But what we maintenance and reliability is we've got to have that top stone, that maintenance strategy planning. You have that in place first before anything else comes after it. All other activities, and I'll tell you, this was me back when I was in a plant. I had change management, I had planning and scheduling, I had coaching, I had business processes and preventive and all those things, but they weren't together in a cohesive, strategic layout. Here's what we're going to do, here's where we're going, here's the milestones, and here's the measures. You've got to have that strategy in place before any of the stuff below it makes any sense. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of people doing great work. But it's not, again, it's not cohesive and it's not stitched together. So this is a great slide. So things. First, as I mentioned before, we're going to start out with getting our terms straight. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Talk about our strategic approach in general, KPIs and metrics, elements that affect our inherent reliability. We're going to talk about inherent reliability. We also develop skills in our skill trades. I think most people listening to this webinar, certainly attending the workshop, will understand and agree that we're losing skill in the skill trades, troubleshooting most notably. About key maintenance activities, these are the planning and scheduling, the storeroom, the preventive predictive maintenance, these types of activities. And we're going to create an action plan. Here's what we're going to do going forward, and here's the timeline we intend to follow.
Customized action plan, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Every attendee, even if you're from the same company but a different plant, again, it's the operating context. Circumstances are a little different, so it's going to be different. So, we're going to talk about some of the terminology. This is important. When people say we want greater reliability, well, what does that mean? So, come up with some definition at our place what the word reliability means, and uptime and downtime and optimal and other kinds of terms. We all say these in our place, and they have different meanings, so we need to get these words right. I want to deliver reliability, but I want to make sure the person I'm delivering it for the same definition, so we'll talk about that. I mentioned the change. This is interesting because even Darwin said that in order for change to be sustainable, it has to be profitable to the organism or the animal, if you will, that's experiencing the change. And I wonder sometimes our resistance to changes, we don't see the value in the change. We're stretching that a bit, but I think there's some argument there. This is the change model. This isn't the one that's necessarily in the course, but this is certainly in my book. It talks about, we got to buy the status quo and why today the way things are now is not good for the company. It's certainly not good for us in the 21st century, but someone has to take from that and create a vision and lead people towards a new vision. And from vision becomes the expectations, and from the expectations, we determine what it is we need to measure. Are we on track? And then over time, behavior changes based on what we're measuring, and then ultimately we end up in this where the we have mass down here at the new culture. We have our company, our plant has a culture to it, has a feeling to it, and that change happens. And what's interesting is if you put continuous improvement on top of that, continuous improvement, CI is predicated on the fact that what we did last time is an actual improvement. And where sometimes as leaders we fall short is we try to go, look at this model here on the screen, we try to go from status quo down to culture, take into effect the vision, the expectations, metrics, behavior over time, and culture. And it's from this culture, when everybody kind of amasses down at this new culture, from there we can improve and set new expectations. And as a group, as a culture, as a company, as a family almost, we get to this new set of expectations. So we're going to talk about where continuous improvement comes in this first section. I mean, profitable. That's an example. This is from the class. This is an example where we take essentially the vision and we've got what the value is to the associate or the employee. So you can see at the bottom of that table, it says the profit gained by the associate. Just number one behavior out of a vision is that the employee or the associate gets a greater sense of engagement, and they're more important and they're relevant to the process. They have more authority. They have responsibility, but now they have more authority. They have more say, and that becomes something that's a little bit more sustainable. I think certainly I've seen it anyway, is that we think ownership means responsibility and accountability, when really ownership means responsibility and authority. We want our associates and employees and even our frontline supervisors, and heck, we want everybody to have ownership of their processes and their machines and assets. And that means we have to relegate some authority along with the responsibility. And that's how you get people engaged. That's how you get commitment. That's how the change model works, by creating this culture of responsibility, but the authority that goes along with it. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this in the workshop, and you're going to develop what that looks like back at your place. This is where we touch on the first follows the SMRP body of knowledge. This is the business of reliability. This is synonymous with business management, the pillar of SMRP. A colleague once said, and I thought this was just a great quote, that one in the organization owes their paycheck to the effective and efficient use of equipment along with its longevity. If you think of any piece of equipment in your plant, or if you're a facility, not manufacturing, but a facility like a hospital or university, if you just some of the equipment, some of the assets, doesn't the proper operation of that pay the bills? It provides the service or the product that people are wanting from your company or organization. And so it's contingent upon everybody to have a role to play in reliability. And so that's how the company makes money. It takes its assets and makes income. In fact, Kiyosaki's book, Rich Poor Dad, I borrowed this, cited, of course, properly, but think of this. Only assets make income, and from income we pay our expenses. That's the light bill and payroll and stuff. And service our liabilities for business. That would be liens or taxes or other kinds of things. But what assets of our company that make income? Well, certainly capital equipment, the stuff that's making the stuff. Also knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills are assets that we can convert to make income. The correct inventory for my storeroom folks is an asset. Proper maintenance, and that's what we're talking about today, and reality are also assets that make the company income. And if you're a for-profit organization, that's what it's all about. We're taking our knowledge and skills, our abilities, our maintenance processes, and we're making income for the company. I think troubling today, and this is right here in the first bullet, is that we don't have strategy. I mean, I didn't have a strategy. I mean, quickly, but I didn't have one. I should have had one. But we don't have a real strategy. I want to give you an example, Tom, of what I'm talking about. A simple and understanding, be clear execution, and have tactically executable elements, and it has to be systematic. And just an example I always give, because I think people can really associate with this. Think of a football coach that's running off the field. It's halftime. His team's down by 7 or 10 points. And on-field report stops the coach and says, "Coach, you're down by 10 points. What's the message to the team in the locker room?" The coach is going to say something like this. We need to take away the run game. We need to reduce them to one dimension. We need to win the takeaway game. We got to get some fumbles. We got to get some interceptions. We need to tackle better. They're running right through us. We need to wrap them up and tackle them. And ultimately, though, we just need to score more points. So, coach, in about 30 seconds, let the strategy, simple understanding, clear execution, tactically executable elements, and it got to be somatic, right? And so, this everywhere. But back in the talking about where I worked, if I was to lay out, here's how we're going to win this game, I don't have that. I don't have X's and O's drawn out. I don't know what it's going to cost, and it just seems like we ought to know that. So one of the things, again, Tom, this is individual to the people attending. You're going to create the vision. Remember the change model I showed you, status quo and vision? You're going to create the vision for where you are in the future, not where you're going to be, but where you are, where you see yourself. And we can do exercises for this. And then also from that, we're going to create a mission statement. And the mission says, who are we? What do we do? How do we do it? And who do we do it for? You look at the mission statement, and that provides the purpose for what we're doing. Somebody says, why are we doing this? That's the mission, man. That's what our purpose is. And so we're going to, every attendee is going to create their own individual mission too. And then again, apply that to the PowerPoint, template in the back and be pronounced to the leadership. This is our vision. This is our mission. Essentially, this is our purpose. Here's the thing that in the search for my book and just some additional work. Metrics and KPIs are two different things. Metrics are anything that you're tracking and trending. You maybe just determine magnitude. One metric, a key performance indicator, is that it's a metric that is tied directly to a stated goal or objective. So when we start laying a strategy, we are going to do this, and this is what we're going to do, and these are our goals, and this is our mission. When you start making those declarations and really putting force and power behind it, you're actually setting up the way you measure that as key performance indicators. Because when you're off KPI, you do something to get back on track. Because I got this thing mapped out. I'm here. I'm going over here. Like a roadmap almost. So I got to get back on the right road. So we're going to talk about the difference between metrics and KPIs, and we're going to develop some real KPIs around some real goals that you have, or the learner has for their reliability. Of reliability is synonymous with SMRP's pillar, that's manufacturing process reliability. You remember this ownership, responsibility, and authority. This is interesting because now we're starting to talk about commitment versus compliance. We want to talk about engagement equals ownership equals commitment. It's only when we give the authority along with the responsibility that we get the ownership, and only when we have that do we get real commitment. We're going to work too, so the attendees will be developing some workflows on the different maintenance processes, but we'll understand what workflows are. That isn't directly to a RACI chart, responsible, accountable, consultant, inform. The responsible person is responsible for doing the actual activity. So everything we do is a process. We can map everything out. That's the workflow, individual blocks of activity. And inside of that, we can identify who's responsible for it. And ultimately, this creates a process guide, which again, the attendee to the work will be creating a process guide as a template, which include all the things we just talked about, in addition to the activity detail, which is how to do individual steps that are drawn out in the workflow itself. All the mistakes that we make, we're going to correct this in the workshop, is roles and responsibilities are two different things. You yourself have, with Marshall, you have different roles that you fulfill as one of the leaders of the company. In each one of those roles, you have different responsibilities. As a senior consultant, I have many roles as well, but I also have responsibilities with each of those roles. So we're going to identify what those are and the differences. We'll have a routine exercise and discussion on root cause analysis and problem solving, what the differences are and when you use each, and then some of the tools that you use. And we'll briefly touch on in the workshop, for those, it's applicable to some people that are under OSHA's 29 CFR, safety management, but we're going to touch on this. Even if you're not part of the PSM, it's still a good idea to have, employee participation and incident investigations and compliance audits and integrity, these kinds of things. So we'll just touch on them briefly. If anybody has any more questions about them, of course, we can answer those. Reliability is synonymous with reliability. And interesting, because this is probably the one thing that most companies can really use some help in. Equipment design excellence, also called design for excellence or early equipment management. It turns out that if you design something poorly and you build it cheaply and you install it hastily, you don't have a world-class asset. You have a nightmare on your hands for 40 years. So we have a nice algebraic formula that we're going to exercises with in the workshop, that you design it better, build it, not expensively, but build it more robustly, and you install it properly, and you have a real good asset now. You get high inherent reliability. And it comes to us with what's called inherent reliability. You can't maintain more reliability to an asset than it inherently. And what we're going to DBI formula, learn how to have an asset arrive to us with a greater inherent reliability, and we can maintain that. I had my very first consultant from Marshall Institute, oddly enough, told me, said, John, maintenance organizations have to handle three things at the same time: preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, and emergency maintenance. We do preventive maintenance to find the corrective maintenance, and we do the corrective maintenance to keep from having emergency maintenance. So we need to organizationally design ourselves so we can handle all three of these when erupting one or the other. Turns out most people pull people off of the planned work to go handle emergency work. Well, we need to stop doing that. And, one of the things we do in that effort is to identify what are some of the reliability KPIs. How do we measure reliability? Sometimes the delivery of our maintenance is that formula, but most maintenance metrics and KPIs are really just maintenance administration, like schedule compliance, PM compliance. They're not reliability KPIs, so we're going to learn the difference, and we're going to learn some reliability KPIs. 5 is leading and organizing for reliability. It's us with SMRP's organization and leadership. It's been my experience that we'll take a really good technician and make them a bad maintenance supervisor. Not that they're bad people, but it's one thing to be someone's best friend on Friday and then be their boss on Monday. So we have to have like I call it charm school or finishing school, where we take these really great technicians, if we make them supervisors, and we teach the skills, because there's a role for a manager in maintenance supervision, the schedules and the budgets and stuff, but have to have the leadership aspect. That's where you're encouraging people to move towards the vision and identifying where we are on the mission and where we are on our strategy. So you got to have both in place. So we tend to favor management, well, we need to bring in leadership too. This slide here goes back to the skill. We do a lot of maintenance training, but are we getting a return on investment? If I send someone off to PLC training, I expect them to come back and be able to do PLC kinds of things, programming, troubleshooting with the computer, and do kinds of things, again, that turn our maintenance activity into an asset that makes the company more money. So we need to get what we pay for. Are we getting the value for our training? The last section is working towards reliability. This is synonymous with work management. And this is actually the stuff we do in maintenance. And I'll just go through this kind of briefly. If you're familiar with the P to F curve, this is the rate of deterioration of a component. Every component, but most components follow a deterioration curve, where someone can identify at point P that, hey, that motor's hot or that gearbox is making a noise, but there's some sense that something's not right. That's point P. For functional failure is where the component has actually failed. That time interval, P to F, to respond to it. And I've preventive and predictive maintenance on the back of the P to F curve to show you where maintenance needs to stay back on the curve. Once something is identified, it has to be prioritized, and the learner, the attendee to the workshop, is going to build a line chart like you see here, ranking index of maintenance expenditures. This is you got the components listed by criticality on the left-hand side. You got the maintenance activities listed across the top. And based on the rows and columns coming together to determine what the priority is. And then we start a process, which is an actual maintenance process. We're going to either approve the work request, turn it into a work order or not. We go on to planning. This is where the planner walks down a job. We're going to create a job plan and what goes into a job plan, and identify parts and skills and principal process steps that need to take place. There's also a period in the discussion where we talk about what the storeroom does. And for planning, we identify what parts we need. That the storeroom, their function is to have the right part, right time, right quantity. And talk about making our storeroom effective to begin with, and then making it more efficient. But the storeroom has a significant role to play in reliability. And then off to scheduling. The scheduler leans out the white space between jobs, where the planner leaned out all the non-value steps before a job. So now we're scheduling the work to be executed right before functional failure. $30,000 control valve, we want to ride that thing out before it fails, kind of get the value out of it. Then we're going to that's where production hands it over to maintenance. We're going to talk about how that works, and hand over where maintenance hands it back to production. After it's done, the planners are analyzer. They're the alpha and the omega of the CMMS system. The planners see if we did the job we said we're going to do, and if we got the root cause. But also the planner's the first one to notice a trend. They'll notice that we replaced that motor before. Maybe we need to do something different. So that's analyzing. The reliability engineer is also an analyzer, and their role is to increase the mean time between failure of the that we're talking about. And file it away. The real value of a job plan is filing it away for future use. We replaced a motor today. We're going to replace that same motor 5 years from now because a new motor has a P to F curve. Simply need to bring the job plan out. We know how to replace that motor. We need to know how to file it first. And then at the end, Tom, as I've been talking about, through all these exercises and all these discussions, the ending to the workshop is adding content to a profile, but also to a PowerPoint template that they go back to their leadership and say, this is our maintenance strategy. So where I did not say that I had a strategy and here's what it's going to take to get it done, the people that attend this workshop will now have a ready-made to them, that they've customized, that they've personalized what I want to do at this location, and this is how we're going to take maintenance and reliability and make it an asset that makes more income for the company and delivers to the bottom line. Not for you today on this, but I think that's a pretty good overview of our workshop.
Fantastic, John. Thanks very much. Yeah, and it's a very detailed overview of the 3-day workshop, and I think you'll see that it's a workshop because it's engaging, it's hands-on. You are thinking about the strategy for your location, for your company, and really, this is John. This is for leaders, stakeholders responsible for equipment availability, uptime. So we anticipate this from maintenance, operations, engineering. Key stakeholders really all supporting the reliability of the equipment. You said that it's ultimately, paying mortgages. It's a great workshop. I appreciate you taking the time, John, to provide an overview of some of the key points and the content of the workshop. We have a couple of remaining deliveries in 2019. So as I said earlier, go to marshallinstitute.com/training to reserve your seat for upcoming workshops. Again, John, thanks very much for your time. Any closing words from you, sir? That is a no. Thank you very much for your time, John. Everyone taking the time to listen in today and be with us for this overview. If you have questions, please call us 998-43722 or go to our website again. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to you hearing from you soon. All the